The first thing you should know about my mother's funeral is that my fiancé tried to sell the house before we'd even lowered the casket into the ground. I'm Adam Miller, 42 years old, Chicago paramedic, and apparently the world's biggest sucker. At least that's what I was thinking as I watched Brooke Wallace, my beloved fiancée of 8 months, whisper urgently into her phone while standing 3 feet from my mother's open casket. "No, I'm telling you, we can fast-track this," she hissed, thinking the organ music would cover her voice. The old lady's barely cold, and Adam's too grief-stricken to think straight. We could have the listing up by Thursday. 43 relatives heard her. I counted. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Nothing says closure like cheap coffee and relatives you only see at funerals or court dates, but this was a new low even for the Miller family gatherings. My Aunt Dorothy nearly choked on her stale donut. Cousin Pete actually laughed out loud, a sharp bark that echoed off the funeral home's fake wood paneling. My mother, Helen Miller, had raised me alone after Dad passed away when I was 12. She'd worked double shifts at the hospital laundry to put me through paramedic training. The house, a modest 2-story in Lincoln Park, was her life's work, her pride, her legacy. And here was Brooke, treating it like a commodity before Mom was even in the ground. "Brooke," I said quietly, walking over to her. "Can I talk to you outside?" She held up one perfectly manicured finger, still on the phone. "Look, Trent, I know the market's hot right now. We need to strike while—" "Brooke." My voice carried across the room now. Every conversation stopped. Even the funeral director paused mid-condolence. She finally looked at me, her green eyes flashing with irritation rather than embarrassment. That should have been my first clue about what was coming. "What, Adam? I'm trying to help us here. Do you want to be stuck with mortgage payments on a house you'll never live in?" The silence in the room was deafening. My Uncle Ray, 25 years with Chicago PD, slowly stood up from his folding chair. He had that look cops get when they're deciding whether to arrest someone or just scare them straight. "Help us?" I repeated. "Brooke, my mother died yesterday. Yesterday. We're at her funeral. Right now." She glanced around the room, finally seeming to register the 40-plus pairs of eyes staring at her. But instead of apologizing, instead of showing even a hint of shame, she doubled down. "Look, I know this is hard, but someone has to think practically here. That house is worth $400,000, maybe more if we stage it right. We could use that money for our wedding, for a down payment on something better in the suburbs. Your mother would want you to be happy, right?" My cousin Pete stood up. Then Aunt Dorothy. Then my mother's bridge club ladies, all 5 of them, rising like a jury delivering a verdict. "Get out," I said quietly. "Adam, don't be ridiculous. We need to discuss—" "Get out!" The words erupted from somewhere deep in my chest, somewhere that had been building pressure since I'd first heard her voice on that phone call. "Get out of here right now, or I swear to God, Brooke, I will have you thrown out." Uncle Ray was already moving, his heavy footsteps echoing on the funeral home's cheap carpet. "Ma'am, I think it's time for you to leave." But Brooke wasn't done. She never was. "Fine, fine, but don't come crying to me when you're drowning in property taxes and utility bills on a house you can't afford to maintain. Don't come begging when you realize I was the only one looking out for your future." She grabbed her purse, a designer thing that probably cost more than my mother's last 3 electric bills combined, and stormed toward the exit. But she stopped at the door, turned back, and delivered the line that would haunt me for weeks. "You know what, Adam? Your mother was a selfish old woman who never thought about anyone but herself. Just like you. Maybe that's why your father left." The room exploded. Aunt Dorothy actually threw her coffee cup. Pete lunged forward, but Uncle Ray caught him. The bridge club ladies started shouting in unison, a chorus of outrage that would have made my mother proud. But I just stood there, watching Brooke storm out into the Chicago drizzle, and felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Something that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with revenge. "She came for my mother's bones," I whispered to Uncle Ray as he walked back over. "Now I'm coming for hers. Metaphorically, of course." He looked at me with those cop eyes that had seen everything twice. "Adam, son, maybe you should think about—" "No," I cut him off. "I'm done thinking. Time to start acting." 3 days after the funeral, I was sitting in my apartment going through Mom's papers when I found Brooke's real plan. She'd left her laptop behind in her rush to storm out. A MacBook Pro that she'd bought with my credit card, I now realized, checking the statements I'd been too trusting to examine closely. The password was easy enough. Her birthday, the same combination she used for everything. Email after email to someone named Trent Lawson. Her mortgage broker, apparently. Also, as it became crystal clear from their correspondence, her lover. "Baby," the old bat finally croaked. Read one message, sent the day after Mom faded. Adam's a mess, which is perfect for us. I've already talked to a realtor friend about fast-tracking the sale. We could have cash in hand within 6 weeks. Trent's reply, beautiful. Can't wait to upgrade everything. The house, the car, the man. You deserve so much better than a paramedic, sweetheart. I scrolled through months of messages. Plans to cash out Adam quick. Explicit photos I definitely didn't want to see. Discussions about their real future together, once they could dump the extra weight. But the worst part? The detailed breakdown of my mother's assets, my salary, my savings account balance. Brooke had been cataloging my entire financial life, sharing it with her lover, planning their future with my money and my mother's house. I always thought CPR was for the fading, not for resuscitating my fiancé's bank account. My phone buzzed. Omar, my best friend and fellow paramedic, checking in. How you holding up, man? I'm holding up fine, I said, but Brooke's about to have some serious health problems. Adam, whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking about making a house call. The next morning, I showed up at Brooke's real estate office wearing my paramedic uniform and carrying my emergency medical kit. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, who'd always been friendly at office parties, looked confused. Adam, is everything okay? Brooke's in a meeting with her boss and some client. Medical emergency, I said seriously. I got a call about someone experiencing severe gastric distress. Food poisoning, maybe worse. Ashley's eyes widened. Oh my God, should I evacuate the building? No, nothing that serious. But I do need to speak with everyone who was at yesterday's office lunch, starting with Brooke. I'd done my homework. Yesterday's office lunch had been at a seafood place downtown. I'd seen the photos on Brooke's Instagram. Perfect setup for what I had planned. Ashley led me back to the conference room, where Brooke sat across from her boss, Janet, and a man I immediately recognized from his dating profile photos. Trent Lawson. Tall, expensive suit. The kind of artificially white smile that screamed, trust fund baby. Adam? Brooke's face went pale. What are you doing here? Ma'am, I need to ask you some questions about your lunch yesterday. We've had reports of severe food poisoning from Murphy's Seafood Shack. Several people have been hospitalized. Janet leaned forward, concerned. Food poisoning? How severe? I pulled out my notebook, playing the part perfectly. Violent gastric episodes, ma'am. Projectile vomiting, severe diarrhea, dehydration. The health department is investigating, but we need to check on everyone who ate there yesterday. Trent shifted uncomfortably. I wasn't at any office lunch. Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification. We're tracking everyone who was in the restaurant between noon and 2 p.m. While Trent fumbled for his wallet, I casually opened my medical kit and pulled out a small vial. Ma'am, I said to Brooke, I'm going to need you to take this activated charcoal solution. It'll help absorb any toxins still in your system. I feel fine, Brooke protested. Ma'am, the symptoms can take up to 48 hours to manifest. By then it could be too late. This is just a precaution. The liquid in the vial was harmless, basically a mixture of activated charcoal and ipecac syrup that would make her violently nauseous within minutes but wouldn't cause any lasting harm. A little trick we used in the ER for certain types of poisoning cases. Drink it quickly, I instructed. It doesn't taste great. Brooke, with her boss and Trent watching, downed the mixture in one gulp. I checked my watch. Now, sir, I turned to Trent, about your identification. The health department is going to want to interview everyone who was in that restaurant. I told you, I wasn't... Mr. Lawson, according to the credit card records we pulled, you paid for a lunch for two at Murphy's yesterday at 12:47 p.m. Table 12, by the window. Trent's face went white. Brooke's face went green. I need some air, she gasped, pressing her hand to her stomach. That's normal, I said professionally. The activated charcoal can cause some gastric upset as it works. There's a bathroom just down the hall. Brooke bolted from the room. 30 seconds later, we heard the unmistakable sound of violent retching echoing from the women's restroom. Oh my God, Janet whispered. Is she going to be okay? She'll be fine, I assured her. Just needs to get the toxins out of her system. Now, Mr. Lawson, about that lunch. Our records show you were there with a woman matching Ms. Wallace's description. Can you explain the nature of your relationship? Trent looked like he wanted to run, but Janet was staring at him with growing suspicion. We were discussing a mortgage application. At a romantic restaurant, on a Tuesday afternoon, while she was supposed to be showing houses to clients. The retching sounds from the bathroom got louder, more violent. I think I should go, Trent said, standing up. Sir, I'm going to need you to stay until the health department investigator arrives. This is a potential criminal matter now. If someone deliberately contaminated food at that restaurant, we're looking at assault charges. Brooke stumbled back into the room, her makeup streaked, her designer blouse stained, her face the color of old cheese. I think I need to go home, she whispered. Ma'am, I'm afraid I can't let you drive in your condition. Do you have someone who can pick you up? She looked desperately at Trent, who was studying his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. Trent, she pleaded. I have another appointment, he mumbled. Janet was putting pieces together now. I could see it in her eyes. The lunch that never made it onto Brooke's schedule, the mysterious client meetings, the mortgage broker who couldn't meet her gaze. Ms. Wallace, Janet said slowly, I think we need to have a conversation about your recent client activities and your lunch schedule. Brooke tried to respond, but another wave of nausea hit her. She doubled over, dry heaving now, nothing left in her stomach to bring up. Consider this my contribution to your drive for success, I said quietly, packing up my medical kit. As I walked out of the office, I could hear Janet's voice rising, Brooke's weak protests, and Trent's stammered excuses. By the time I reached my car, Trent was rushing out of the building, his face red with embarrassment and anger. He didn't notice me following him to the parking garage. His BMW was parked in a reserved spot. Of course it was. I waited until he was inside, then walked over and knocked on his window. He rolled it down, looking annoyed. What do you want? Just wanted to thank you, I said pleasantly, for taking such good care of my fiancée, really going above and beyond the call of duty for a mortgage broker. Look, man, I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the emails, Trent. I know about the photos. I know about your little plan to upgrade everything, the house, the car, the man. Sound familiar? His face went white again. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, still speaking in that pleasant, professional tone I used with difficult patience. You're going to stay away from Brooke. You're going to stay away from my mother's house. And you're going to find yourself a new career, because I'm pretty sure your mortgage company would be very interested to know about your extracurricular activities with clients. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of one of his emails to Brooke. Actually, I can prove everything. Every email, every photo, every plan you two made. The question is, do you want this to stay between us, or should I forward it to your boss? Your wife? Your mortgage licensing board? My wife? His voice cracked. Oh, did I forget to mention? I looked you up, Trent. Nice family photos on Facebook. Your wife Sarah looks lovely. I bet she'd be fascinated to see what you've been doing during your client lunches. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating his options. What do you want? I want you to disappear, from Brooke's life, from my life, from any plans involving my mother's property, and I want you to think very carefully about your next career move. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Trent, you might want to get your car detailed. I think someone spilled something on your hood. I'd poured the rest of my activated charcoal mixture across his pristine white BMW before knocking on his window. It looked like someone had vomited all over his car. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Mom passed away. Satisfaction. But this was just the beginning. Brooke and her network of enablers had made a mistake. They'd underestimated the paramedic. Time to show them what a real emergency looked like. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Brooke and a text message that made me laugh out loud. Adam, we need to talk. What you did yesterday was completely unprofessional. I could report you to your supervisor. I was still chuckling when Omar showed up at my door with coffee and donuts. You look better, he said, settling into Mom's old recliner. Less like someone who's planning a murder. That's because I'm not planning a murder. I'm planning something much more creative. I showed him the laptop, the emails, the photos. Omar's expression went from concerned to disgusted to impressed. Damn, brother. She really had this all mapped out, didn't she? Like a surgical procedure, except she forgot one thing. I'm pretty good at emergency medicine myself. My phone rang. Uncle Ray. Adam, I just got an interesting call from Janet Morrison at Pinnacle Realty. Says you came by yesterday about food poisoning, but the health department has no record of any investigation at Murphy's Seafood. Huh, that's weird. Adam. Yes, Uncle Ray. What did you do? I provided emergency medical care to someone who was clearly suffering from acute gastric distress. There was a long pause. And this gastric distress just happened to occur right after you gave her some activated charcoal? Amazing how these things work out, isn't it? Another pause. Adam, I'm going to give you some advice as both your uncle and a police officer. Whatever you're planning next, make sure it's legal. Brooke Wallace called this morning talking about filing charges. For what? Providing medical assistance? For assault. I felt my good mood evaporate. Assault? She claims you deliberately poisoned her. Uncle Ray, I gave her activated charcoal and ipecac syrup. It's standard treatment for certain types of poisoning. Any ER doctor will confirm that. Can you prove she needed treatment? I thought about that. Actually, yes, I can prove she was exhibiting symptoms of acute stress and deception, which can manifest as gastric distress. It's a recognized medical condition. Omar was grinning now. Oh, this is good. Plus, I continued, I have documentation of her psychological state over the past several days. Erratic behavior, emotional instability, signs of severe guilt and anxiety. All indicators that someone might benefit from medical intervention. What kind of documentation? Her emails, her text messages, her search history on that laptop she left behind. Did you know she's been researching how to break an engagement without losing money and legal ways to claim inheritance from Fiancée's family? Uncle Ray sighed. Adam, you're walking a fine line here. I'm walking the line perfectly. Everything I've done has been legal, ethical, and medically justified. But I'm not done yet. That afternoon, I drove to Mom's house for the first time since the funeral. It looked exactly the same, small but well-maintained, with Mom's flower garden already showing signs of spring growth. She'd loved those flowers. I sat in the driveway for a long time, thinking about what Brooke had said at the funeral, about Mom being selfish, about Dad leaving. The truth was, Dad didn't leave. He passed away of a heart attack when I was 12, working double shifts at the steel mill to pay for Mom's cancer treatments. She'd beaten the cancer, but the medical bills had nearly destroyed us. That's why she'd worked at the hospital laundry for 20 years, to pay off the debt and save enough to leave me something. Selfish? My mother was the most selfless person I'd ever known. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Jim, it's Adam Miller. I need to make some changes to my will. An hour later, I walked out of the law office with a new will that left Mom's house to the veterans' shelter downtown. If anything happened to me, Brooke wouldn't see a penny. But I wasn't planning on anything happening to me. I was planning on something happening to her. That evening, I drove to Brooke's apartment building. She lived in one of those trendy high-rises in River North, the kind with a doorman and valet parking, the kind I could never afford on a paramedic's salary. I didn't go up. Instead, I waited in the parking garage until I saw Trent's BMW, freshly detailed, I noticed, pull into a visitor's spot. I'd brought my professional camera, the one I used to document accident scenes for insurance reports. High resolution, excellent night vision, perfect for capturing images of Trent and Brooke as they walked to the elevator, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. I took about 50 photos, then I followed them upstairs. The building had terrible security. I just walked in behind another resident and took the elevator to Brooke's floor. Her apartment was 2847, and the walls were thin enough that I could hear voices from the hallway. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I can't believe he humiliated me like that, Brooke was saying. Janet's asking all kinds of questions now. She wants to see my client files, my appointment calendar, everything. Maybe we should cool it for a while, Trent's voice nervous. Cool it? Trent, we've been planning this for months. The old lady is gone, Adam's vulnerable, and that house is worth a fortune. This is our chance. But if he knows about us? He doesn't know anything. He's just suspicious. We stick to the plan, we get the house sold, and we disappear to somewhere warm with a lot of money. What about your job? Screw my job. Once we have $400,000 in cash, I don't need Janet Morrison or Pinnacle Realty. I heard movement, then Trent's voice again. What about Adam? What about him? He's a paramedic, Trent. He makes $40,000 a year and drives a 10-year-old Honda. He'll get over it. He seemed pretty angry yesterday. He's grieving. People do stupid things when they're grieving. But he's not stupid enough to actually try anything. He's too nice. I smiled in the hallway. Too nice. We'd see about that. I had enough. I walked back to the elevator, rode down to the parking garage, and spent 20 minutes with Trent's BMW. I didn't key it. That would be vandalism. Instead, I did something much more creative. I'd brought a medical scalpel and a small bottle of surgical adhesive. Very carefully, I spelled out cheater across his windshield using the adhesive, invisible now, but it would show up beautifully the next time it rained or he used his windshield washers. Then I called the building's front desk. Hi, this is Detective Ray Miller with Chicago PD, I said, deepening my voice slightly. We've had reports of suspicious activity in your parking garage. A white BMW, license plate. I read off Trent's number. The owner may be involved in a fraud investigation. Could you make a note to keep an eye on that vehicle? Of course, Detective. Should we call if we see anything unusual? Please do. And if anyone asks about the car, just tell them it's part of an ongoing investigation. Perfect. Now every time Trent visited Brooke, the building staff would be watching him. I drove home feeling better than I had in days, but as I pulled into my parking space, I saw someone waiting by my door, Brooke, and she looked furious. We need to talk, she said as I got out of my car. I don't think we do. Adam, this has gone far enough. I know what you did at my office yesterday, and I know you've been following me. Following you? That's an interesting accusation. Can you prove it? I saw your car in my parking garage. Really? What was I doing there? She hesitated. You were... Brooke, I was at work yesterday evening, 3 to 11 shift. I've got a dozen witnesses and a time-stamped GPS log from my ambulance, so unless you're claiming I can be in 2 places at once... Her face flushed red. You're lying. Am I? Feel free to check with my supervisor, or with the patients I transported to Northwestern Memorial around the time you think you saw me. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how I'd managed to be in 2 places at once. This isn't over, Adam. No, I agreed. It's not, but it's going to end exactly the way I want it to. She turned to leave, then stopped. You know, your mother would be ashamed of you. My mother, I said quietly, would be proud that I finally learned to stand up for myself. As she walked away, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Omar. Phase 2 complete, ready for Phase 3. His reply came back immediately. What's Phase 3? Public humiliation. Time to let Chicago know exactly who Brooke Wallace really is. The next morning, I woke up to find my car vandalized. Someone had keyed asshole into the paint on both sides and slashed 2 tires. They'd also poured sugar in my gas tank, an old trick that doesn't actually damage the engine but makes a hell of a mess. I called Uncle Ray. Brooke? He asked when he saw the damage. Has to be, or her boyfriend. You want to file a report? I looked at the security camera mounted on the building across the street. Actually, let me check something first. The building manager was a guy named Pete who'd been having problems with his teenage son getting into trouble. I'd helped out a few months ago when the kid had overdosed at a party. Rushed him to the ER, didn't ask questions, didn't call the cops. Pete owed me. Adam, man, I'm sorry about your car, he said when I knocked on his door. I saw it this morning. You want to check the security footage? 20 minutes later, we were watching crystal clear video of Trent Lawson destroying my Honda at 2:30 a.m. while Brooke stood lookout by the street. You want me to call the police? Pete asked. Not yet. Can you make me a copy of this? Already done. He handed me a flash drive. Adam, these people seem like bad news. They are, but not for much longer. I spent the rest of the morning making copies of everything. The emails, the photos from the parking garage, the security footage, Brooke's browser history from her abandoned laptop. Then I started making phone calls. First call, Janet Morrison at Pinnacle Realty. Ms. Morrison, this is Adam Miller. I think you should know that I have video evidence of your employee Brooke Wallace and her associate Trent Lawson vandalizing my car last night. Mr. Miller, I'm not sure this is appropriate. I also have documentation of Ms. Wallace conducting personal business during work hours, meeting with clients for non-professional purposes, and sharing confidential financial information with unauthorized third parties. There was a long pause. What kind of documentation? Email records, photographs, browser history. Ms. Morrison, I think Brooke has been using her position at your company to facilitate some questionable activities. I'd like to see this documentation. I'll email it to you within the hour. Second call, the Chicago real estate gossip blog. Yes, that's a real thing, and yes, it's as petty as it sounds. Perfect for my purposes. Hi, this is Adam Miller. I have a story you might be interested in. It involves a local real estate agent, mortgage fraud, and some very interesting email exchanges. Third call, Trent's Mortgage Company. Compliance Department, I'd like to report some potentially unethical behavior by one of your brokers. Fourth call, Sarah Lawson, Trent's wife. Mrs. Lawson, you don't know me, but I have some information about your husband that I think you should see. By noon, I'd sent documentation packages to 12 different people and organizations. By 2 p.m., my phone was ringing constantly. Janet Morrison called first. Mr. Miller, I've reviewed the materials you sent. Brooke Wallace is no longer employed by Pinnacle Realty. The mortgage company called next. Mr. Miller, we're opening a formal investigation into Mr. Lawson's activities. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. The real estate blog called to confirm details for their story, which would be published that evening under the headline, Local Agent's House of Cards Collapses. But the best call came from Sarah Lawson. Mr. Miller, I want to thank you. I've suspected something was going on for months, but I didn't have proof. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. I was feeling pretty good about myself when Omar showed up with lunch and bad news. Brother, you need to see this. He handed me his phone, showing a Facebook post from one of Brooke's friends, a woman named Cassandra who'd been at several of our dinner parties. Can't believe what Adam Miller is doing to poor Brooke, the post read. The woman is just trying to help him through his grief, and he's stalking her, harassing her at work, and spreading lies about her relationship with a client. Some men can't handle a strong, independent woman. Brooke deserves so much better. The post had 37 likes and dozens of comments, all supporting Brooke and painting me as an obsessive, controlling ex-fiancé. There's more, Omar said grimly. He scrolled to another post, this one from Brooke herself. Thank you all for your support during this difficult time. Adam's behavior has become increasingly erratic and threatening since his mother's funeral. I'm scared for my safety, but I'm trying to handle this privately out of respect for his grief. Please keep me in your thoughts. That post had over 100 likes. She's playing the victim, I said, and people are buying it. Adam, maybe you should back off. You've already cost her her job, ended her boyfriend's marriage, destroyed their little scheme. Isn't that enough? I stared at the Facebook posts, at the comments calling me a psycho and a stalker, at the narrative Brooke was spinning to make herself look like the innocent victim of a grieving man's breakdown. No, I said quietly. It's not enough. She wants to play victim? Fine, let's give her something to really cry about. That evening, I drove to the abandoned wing of Chicago General Hospital. It was scheduled for demolition next month, but for now it was empty. Perfect for what I had planned. I'd worked in that building for 3 years before the hospital consolidated operations to the new facility across town. I knew every room, every corridor, every security system. More importantly, I knew it had been wired for live video streaming during its final months. The hospital had used it for training purposes. The streaming equipment was still there, still functional. I spent 2 hours setting up cameras in the main corridor, the old emergency room, and the administrative office. Then I sent out invitations. To Brooke. We need to talk. Meet me at Chicago General, old building, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Come alone, and we can settle this like adults. To Trent. Your girlfriend is planning to throw you under the bus. If you want to know what she's really been telling people about you, meet me at Chicago General tomorrow at 8 p.m. Old building, main entrance. To Cassandra and the rest of Brooke's social media defenders. Want to see what your friend Brooke is really like? Check out the live stream tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I included the streaming link. To Uncle Ray. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Chicago General Old Building. Bring backup. You're going to want to arrest someone, but it won't be me. Then I sat back and waited. I didn't have to wait long. My phone started ringing at 7:30 the next morning. Adam, what the hell are you planning? It was Brooke, and she sounded panicked. Just a conversation. You said we needed to talk. Not in some abandoned building. That's insane. Brooke, you've been telling everyone I'm dangerous and unstable. If that's true, why would you come? If it's not true, what are you worried about? She hung up. Trent called an hour later. Miller, I don't know what game you're playing, but no game, Trent. Just truth. 8 o'clock. Don't be late. The day crawled by. I went to work, ran my normal calls, acted like everything was fine, but inside I was counting down the hours until showtime. At 7:45 p.m., I was in position in the old hospital, watching the parking lot through a window. Brooke arrived first, in a new car, a red Mercedes that she definitely couldn't afford on an unemployed real estate agent's budget. Trent pulled up 5 minutes later, looking around nervously before getting out of his repaired BMW. They met at the entrance, and I could see them arguing even from 4 stories up. Perfect. I activated the live stream and watched the viewer count climb. 50 people, 100, 200. Time for the main event. I met them in the old emergency room, a space that still smelled faintly of disinfectant and desperation. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was where I'd learned to save lives. Tonight, I was going to destroy one, metaphorically speaking. Adam, this is ridiculous, Brooke said as they walked in. She was trying to sound confident, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. We could have talked anywhere. Could we? Because every time I've tried to have a conversation with you, you've either lied, manipulated the situation, or tried to make me look like the bad guy. Trent was looking around nervously. Why here? This place gives me the creeps. Because this is where I work, Trent. where I save people's lives, where I've learned the difference between people who deserve help and people who don't. I pulled out my phone and showed them the streaming app. Say hello to your audience. We're live to about 300 people right now. Brooke's face went white. You're recording this? Broadcasting it, live, to all your friends, all your former colleagues, all the people who've been so supportive of your victim narrative. Turn it off, Trent demanded. I don't think I will. See, you two have been very busy spreading lies about me, telling people I'm dangerous, unstable, obsessive. I thought it was time to let everyone see who's really dangerous here. I walked over to the old triage desk and pulled out a folder. Let's start with the emails, shall we? Trent, would you like to read some of your greatest hits to the audience? I'm not reading anything. That's fine. I'll do it. I opened the folder and began reading in a clear, professional voice. Baby, the old bat finally croaked. Adam's a mess, which is perfect for us. Brooke lunged for the folder, but I stepped back easily. We're just getting started. How about this one? Can't wait to upgrade everything. The house, the car, the man. You deserve so much better than a paramedic, sweetheart. Stop it, Brooke hissed. Or this lovely exchange about my mother's funeral. Did you see his face when I mentioned the house? He's so pathetic. This is going to be easier than I thought. Trent was backing toward the door, but I'd positioned myself between them and the exit. Going somewhere, Trent? Don't you want to stay for the best part? The part where you two discuss your plans to forge power of attorney documents. That's not what... Brooke started. We could have the papers drawn up by Friday. I continued reading. Adam trusts me completely. He'll sign anything I put in front of him. Should I keep going? The viewer count on my phone was climbing. 400 people. 500. You're insane, Brooke said, but her voice was shaking now. Am I? Let's ask the audience. I held up my phone so the camera could see both of them clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet the real Brooke Wallace and Trent Lawson, the woman who tried to sell my late mother's house at her funeral, and the man who helped her plan it. We never... Trent began. You never what? Never sent emails about cashing out Adam quick? Never met for romantic lunches while she was supposed to be working? Never vandalized my car when your little scheme started falling apart? I pulled out another folder. Security footage from my apartment building. Crystal clear video of both of you destroying my Honda at 2:30 a.m. last Tuesday. Brooke was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage and humiliation. You want to destroy us, she sobbed. Brooke, you destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure everyone gets to see it. The sound of sirens was getting closer. Right on schedule. You called the police? Trent looked panicked. I called my uncle. He's a detective. I thought he might be interested in that security footage. Uncle Ray's voice echoed through the empty corridors. Chicago PD, anyone in here? Emergency room, I called back. He appeared in the doorway with 2 uniformed officers, took one look at the scene, and shook his head. Adam, please tell me you haven't done anything stupid. Nothing illegal, Uncle Ray. Just a little truth-telling session. I gestured to my phone. We're live to about 600 people now. One of the uniformed officers was looking at Trent. Sir, are you Trent Lawson? Why? We have a warrant for your arrest. Vandalism, harassment, and mortgage fraud. As they cuffed Trent, I turned to Brooke. You know what the funny thing is? You were right about one thing. I am too nice. I spent months letting you walk all over me, letting you plan my future without me, letting you disrespect my mother's memory. She glared at me through her tears. I loved you. No, you didn't. You loved my mother's house. You loved the idea of my life insurance policy. You loved having someone stupid enough to pay for your lifestyle while you screwed around with your mortgage broker. The viewer count hit 700. But here's what you didn't count on, I continued. Paramedics are trained to handle emergencies. We stay calm under pressure. We think clearly when everyone else is panicking. And we never, ever give up on someone who can still be saved. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it felt genuine. It means I'm not the one who needed saving, Brooke. You are. And I just performed the most important medical procedure of my career. What procedure? I removed the cancer from my life. Uncle Ray was trying not to laugh. The uniformed officers were leading Trent away, and Brooke was standing there in her expensive clothes, in her designer shoes, realizing that her entire world had just collapsed in front of 700 strangers. You haven't won anything, she said desperately. I'll sue you. You'll what? Sue me for reading your own emails out loud? Sue me for showing people security footage of you committing crimes? Sue me for telling the truth about your affair, your fraud scheme, your plan to steal my inheritance? I held up my phone one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Adam Miller, bringing you the true story of Brooke Wallace and Trent Lawson. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the best medicine is a strong dose of reality. I ended the stream. The silence in the old emergency room was deafening. Brooke stood there for a long moment, looking around at the empty gurneys, the defunct medical equipment, the ghosts of all the lives that had been saved and lost in this room. "Your mother would be ashamed," she whispered one last time. "My mother," I said quietly, "would be proud that I finally learned to stand up for myself. She'd be proud that I didn't let you profit from her passing, and she'd be especially proud that I did it all without breaking a single law." Uncle Ray stepped forward. "Ms. Wallace, I think it's time for you to leave." She looked at him, then at me, then at the camera equipment I'd set up around the room. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. "Restraining order. You come within 500 feet of me, my property, or my workplace, and you'll be arrested." She took the envelope with shaking hands. "Oh, and Brooke, you might want to check your social media. I have a feeling your friends are going to have some very interesting comments about tonight's performance." As Uncle Ray escorted her out, I began packing up my equipment. The old emergency room felt peaceful now, like a weight had been lifted from it. My phone buzzed with a text from Omar. "Watch the whole thing. You magnificent bastard. Beer?" I looked around the room one more time, at the place where I'd learned to save lives, and smiled. "Funny thing about paramedics," I said to the empty room. "We're always there when you crash, but some wrecks should be left where they lie." I walked out of Chicago General Hospital for the last time, leaving Brooke Wallace's life in ruins behind me, and felt more alive than I had in months.